This is a mushrooms trip report by IamAaron'sRationale, posted to Erowid.org on August 23, 2012. I have wanted this moment for a long time. I have wanted to throw myself into my own biology and not just float on the surface, but to swim. I have taken mushrooms before, but never alone, never in a place that felt as safe as my mother's bedroom. I have read a lot about Zen Buddhism lately. I have read about the ego that Alan Watts talks about. I have also read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, especially the version that Timothy Leary edited. Those books made me think that a single dose of mushroom could be a doorway. At the time, I was under a lot of stress. I had a court date in my hometown. I had no money. I had no belongings. I was bored and restless. I thought that a small amount of mushroom might be the most honest way to spend the little money I had. The night before I decided on a plan, I thought that the safest place would be my mother's bed. That bed has been mine since I was a child. It has always felt like a shelter. I also decided to do the experiment early in the morning. My brother would be at school. My mother would be at work. The house would be quiet. I went to the local shop and bought fresh mushrooms. They looked healthy. I bought 3 grams in total because I wanted to split the dose. I intended to eat half of the caps and stems directly and to make tea with the other half. I had read that tea makes the experience smoother. On Christmas Eve, I woke up at 8 o'clock because my mother had agreed to wake me at the time I asked. I did not tell her why I wanted to wake early. I thought it would be better not to involve her in the details. I got dressed and went outside to run a few errands. I bought a small bag of raspberry tea. I also bought a small tin of sugar because I like my tea sweet. I carried the mushrooms back to the house in my pocket, feeling the weight of them as a small promise. When I entered my mother's bedroom, I turned the television off. I pulled the blankets back and placed a few pillows on the mattress so that I could sit upright if I needed to. I placed the mushroom caps and stems on a cutting board and chopped them finely. I put the pieces into a tea bag, added the raspberry tea leaves, and poured hot water over them. I let the mixture steep for a few minutes while I watched the steam rise. The kitchen smelled of sweet berries and earth. I added a spoonful of sugar and stirred. I set the cup on the nightstand. Lola, my dog, was lying at the foot of the bed. She was a small brown mutt with a soft coat. She looked at me with her big eyes, as if she knew something was about to happen. I petted her belly and felt a small shiver run through her fur. I thought about the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It tells the reader to notice landmarks that signal the beginning of the journey. I wanted to be aware of any sign that the trip had started. I took the first half of the mushrooms, about 1.5 grams, and chewed them slowly. The taste was bitter and earthy. I swallowed and then drank the tea. The tea was warm and slightly sweet. I set the cup down and leaned back against the pillows. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on my breathing. I wanted to let the mushrooms do their work without fighting them. I remembered a passage that said resistance only creates fear. After a few minutes, I felt a low hum in the room. It was like a distant gong, a vibration that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The hum grew slowly, like a tide that was rising. I felt a small warmth at the base of my spine. It was not painful, just a gentle heat that spread upward. It reminded me of the description in the Book of the Dead of a fire that burns the old self. I let the feeling rise. I did not try to stop it. I thought that the ego would try to argue, but I told myself to stay still. My eyes were still closed. I moved them behind my lids, trying to get used to the darkness. The darkness was not empty. It was a black canvas with waves of color moving behind my eyelids. The colors were like the pattern you see when you hold a magnet near an old television screen. They pulsed, shifted, and blended. I felt a sense of safety. I felt delighted. I felt that I was in a place that was both inside and outside of me. The hum grew louder. The fire at my spine climbed higher, reaching my chest, then my throat, then my head. I felt my heart beat in rhythm with the hum. My breath became deeper. I thought about the ego, about the idea that I would lose the sense of a separate self. I wanted to see what that felt like. I told myself that the fire was not a threat, but a guide. The room seemed to expand. I could feel the mattress beneath me, the pillows, the blankets, but at the same time I sensed a larger space that was not limited by the walls. I could hear the faint ticking of a clock somewhere in the house, but it sounded like a distant drum. I could hear the wind outside, the rustle of leaves, even though I knew there was no wind. My ears seemed to pick up sounds that were not there. I felt that my senses were being stretched. I opened my eyes slowly. The television was still off. The room was dim because the curtains were drawn. The light that came through the window was soft, like a watercolor wash. The colors on the walls seemed to breathe. The pillows looked like clouds. I saw Lola lying beside me, her eyes half closed. I reached out and stroked her fur. I felt a wave of affection for her. For a brief moment I felt a strange, intimate feeling, but I quickly recognized it as a deep friendship. The Book of the Dead says that all desires are products of the mind, and that the mushroom can wash away the borders between them. I allowed the feeling to pass without judgment. I turned my attention back to my inner world. The hum was still there, a low vibration that seemed to fill the whole house. The fire at my spine was now a bright line that ran up to the crown of my head. I felt as if something was pulling me upward, like a gentle lift. I tried not to think about the outside world. I tried to stay in the present moment. Suddenly I saw a bright light. It was not a single point, but a field of light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The light was white and warm, like the sun on a clear day, but it did not hurt my eyes. It filled the space behind my eyelids and also seemed to spill into the room. Around the light I could see hints of blue, like the sky after a storm. The light pulsed in time with the hum. I felt a sense of awe. I felt that I was being welcomed by something larger than myself. In that light I became aware of two figures. The first figure was enormous. He filled my entire field of vision. He looked like a genie, bound at the wrists by golden gauntlets. His skin was dark, his hair was white, and his face was lined with age. He seemed content despite the restraints. I felt that he was a mirror of my own body, the opposite of my pale, thin young self. The second figure was a black bird that flew quickly in and out of my vision. Its feathers were glossy, and a fiery mane ran down its back. The bird reminded me of my mother because she has red hair. The bird moved with a speed that made it hard to follow, yet it always returned to my sight. I could not remember the words we exchanged, if any. The presence of the two beings felt comforting. They did not demand anything. They simply existed in the space with me. I felt a gentle wave of gratitude toward them. The light began to soften a little, and the blue background grew more visible. The hum continued, steady and reassuring. I stayed in that state for what felt like an eternity, though I knew that only a few minutes had passed. My mind was quiet, yet full of vivid images. My body was relaxed, but I could feel the fire still moving up my spine, now reaching my skull. I felt that I was moving through layers of my own mind, peeling away the parts that I had hidden. I felt that the ego was loosening its grip, not disappearing but becoming less rigid. The hum began to change its tone. It became more like a song, a melody that rose and fell. The light became less intense, more like a gentle glow. The two figures started to fade, their outlines becoming softer. The black bird fluttered away, leaving a trail of red light that lingered in the air. The genie-like figure bowed slightly and then dissolved into the light. I opened my eyes fully now. The room was still the same, but the colors seemed deeper. The curtains looked like a veil of silk. The mattress looked like a field of clouds. Lola was still there, her tail wagging slowly. I felt a sense of calm that I had not felt in a long time. The hum was still present, but now it sounded like a distant drum. The fire at my spine had settled into a warm glow that rested behind my eyes. I knew that I was still on the ascent. The early peak had arrived, but the journey was not over. I felt that the next phase would bring more insight, more images, more feeling. I was ready to let whatever came next happen. I kept my breathing steady, my mind open, and my body relaxed. The teacup sat on the nightstand, half empty. The remaining mushroom tea was still warm, waiting for the next sip if I chose to take it. I sat there, feeling the room breathe with me, listening to the hum, watching the colors shift behind my eyelids, and waiting for the next wave of experience to rise. I feel the edge of the next wave pressing against the surface of my mind. The colors behind my lids sharpen, turning from a soft wash of pastel to a bright lattice of electric blues and vivid oranges. The hum that has been a distant drum now thunders in my ears like a low engine that will not stop. My breath deepens without my effort, each inhale pulling the sound further into the center of my chest. The warm glow at the base of my spine begins to climb, as if a small fire is being fed by a steady stream of air. I watch the flame rise, feeling it travel up the length of my vertebrae, leaving a trail of heat that spreads into the muscles of my shoulders and the soft tissue of my neck. A sense of anticipation builds, not as anxiety but as a quiet readiness. I keep my eyes closed, allowing the darkness behind them to become a screen for whatever comes next. The room around me seems to breathe in time with my own rhythm. The curtains sway slightly with a draft that I do not feel on my skin. The teacup remains on the nightstand, its steam long gone, but the memory of its warmth lingers on my tongue. The wave finally breaks. Light floods my inner vision, not from any external source, but from within. It is a white light that fills every corner of the space behind my eyes, bright enough to make me squint even though my lids are shut. The light does not blind. Instead, it feels like a gentle pressure that pushes all of the scattered thoughts toward a single point. I am aware of the light as a presence, as if a being is standing directly in front of me, its outline made of pure illumination. The light pulses in rhythm with the hum, each pulse sending a ripple through my body that I can feel as a subtle vibration in my fingertips. In that pulse, I see a shape form. It is large, taller than any human I have ever known, and it fills my entire field of view. The being is wrapped in golden bands at the wrists, and the bands extend across its forearms, its chest, and its thighs. The gold glints with a soft sheen, catching the light that emanates from the being itself. The skin of the figure is dark, the tone of deep earth, and the face is lined with age, yet there is a calm smile that rests on its lips. The being does not speak. Instead, a feeling of contentment washes over me, as if the being is telling me that it is at peace with its restraints. At the same moment, another figure darts into view. It is a bird, black as night, moving with a speed that makes it appear as a blur. The bird has a plume of red fire along its back, the flames flickering like the hair of a mother I have known. The bird circles the golden being, then swoops down and lands on the edge of my vision. It looks at me with eyes that seem to hold 1,000 memories. The bird does not make a sound, yet I understand that it is offering me a sense of comfort, a reminder of home. I try to speak, but words do not form. The communication is felt rather than heard. The golden being extends a hand, the gold band glinting, and I feel an invitation to let go of the things that bind me. The bird flutters its wings, and I feel a pull toward the sky, toward a place where I can see everything at once. The feeling is not frightening. It is simply a new way of being aware. The light begins to soften, the intensity dropping to a gentle glow. The golden being and the bird both start to fade, their outlines becoming less defined, until they dissolve into the light itself. I am left with the sensation of being surrounded by a warm, humming sphere that seems to hold all of the colors I have seen. The sphere feels alive, as if it is breathing with me. I feel my own breath sinking with the sphere, each inhale drawing in the hum, each exhale releasing a small part of the light back into the world. The peak settles into a plateau. The light no longer blinds, but it remains present, a soft illumination that colors everything I think about. My thoughts become slower, each one taking longer to form, but each one feels clearer. I notice the way my heart beats, a steady thump that matches the rhythm of the hum. I notice the way my fingers rest on the blanket, the texture of the fabric against my skin, the slight pressure of the mattress against my back. I notice the warmth of the fire that still sits behind my eyes, now a steady ember rather than a flame. Images appear without any narrative. I see a river of clear water flowing over smooth stones, the water moving in a steady, unhurried way. I see a mountain range, the peaks capped with snow, the valleys below shrouded in mist. I see a city at night, its lights flickering like fireflies, the streets empty but alive with a quiet hum. Each image is accompanied by a feeling. The river brings a sense of ease, the mountains bring a sense of stability, the city brings a sense of connection. I realize that these images are not random. They are reflections of parts of myself that I have not paid attention to in a long time. A thought surfaces about the book I have been reading, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and the instructions it gives for navigating the transition between life and death. The thought is not intellectual, it is felt as a gentle pressure in the center of my chest, as if the book itself is a weight that I can hold without strain. I think about the ego, about the idea of letting it go, and I feel a small release, like a knot loosening in my stomach. The feeling is not loss, it is simply a space opening up where the ego used to sit. The hum begins to change its timbre. It becomes less like a drum and more like a soft wind that passes through a field of tall grass. The wind carries a faint scent of pine, of earth after rain. I feel a wave of gratitude rise in me, not directed at any particular thing, but a general sense that I am part of something larger. My eyes remain closed, but I can sense the room around me. I hear the faint ticking of a clock on the wall, the soft creak of the house settling, the distant sound of a car passing outside. The external world is still present, but it feels softened, as if a veil has been placed over it. The plateau begins to wane. The light dims further, becoming a soft amber that sits behind my eyelids. The hum slows, each beat stretching out, giving me more space between each pulse. My body feels heavier, as if the gravity of the room is pulling me down gently. My limbs, which have been relaxed, now feel a slight stiffness, a reminder that I am still a physical being. I notice a small ache in my lower back, the spot where the fire had risen earlier. The ache is not painful, it is simply a reminder that something has moved through that area. I open my eyes slowly, as if I am afraid to break a delicate surface. The room comes into view in a soft focus. The curtains are drawn, the morning light filters through the thin fabric, casting a pale gold across the bed. The teacup sits on the nightstand, the liquid inside now a dark brown, the steam long gone. Lola, my dog, lies curled at my feet, her breathing steady, her ears flicking occasionally at a distant sound. She looks up at me with eyes that seem to understand more than a normal animal could. I sit up, feeling the mattress give way under my weight. My muscles are warm, the fire in my spine now a faint afterglow. My mind feels clear, the thoughts that were swirling before have settled into a quiet stream. I notice that my stomach is empty, that I have not eaten since the tea. I feel a gentle hunger, not a craving, but a simple need for nourishment. I also notice a slight dryness in my mouth, the taste of the tea lingering like a faint aftertaste of raspberry. I stand and walk to the window. The world outside is bright. The sky a clear blue, the sun high enough to cast sharp shadows. The street is quiet, a few cars pass by, a neighbor walks a dog. The sound of distant traffic is a low rumble, similar to the hum that has been with me, but now it is part of the ordinary world. I feel a sense of calm settle over me, a feeling that the experience has not left me disoriented, but rather has given me a new way to look at the ordinary. I decide to get something to eat. I go to the kitchen, open the fridge, take out a piece of toast, spread a thin layer of butter, and sit at the table. The taste of the toast is simple, the butter melts on the tongue, the crumbs crunch lightly. As I chew, I notice how the flavors are more vivid than usual, each bite a small event. I think about the images I saw, about the golden being and the bird, about the river and the mountains. I wonder what they mean for me. I do not try to assign a single meaning. I simply observe that they felt like parts of a larger picture that I have not yet fully assembled. After breakfast, I take Lola for a short walk. The air is cool, the ground slightly damp from the morning dew. As we walk, I notice the texture of the grass under my shoes, the sound of the leaves rustling as a breeze passes through the trees. I feel my feet connecting with the earth, each step a small affirmation that I am present. Lola pulls gently on her leash, her nose leading the way toward the fence where the other dogs are. I recall the incident from earlier in the day, when I intervened with the pit bull and the mutt. The memory comes back clearly, each detail vivid. The woman's panic, the snarling dogs, the way my hands felt on the pit bull's back, the calm voice I used, the moment the dog released its grip. I feel a quiet pride in that action, not in the sense of heroism, but in the sense that I was able to act without the usual fear that would have held me back. I return to the house, feeling the weight of the day settle into a steady rhythm. I sit on the bed again, Lola curled beside me, and I take a moment to write down what I have experienced. I pick up a notebook that I kept on the nightstand, the same one I used to record the beginning of the trip. I write in a clear, simple style, noting the sequence of images, the feelings that accompanied them, the physical sensations. I do not try to embellish. I only record what is there.